At this time, I'm going to go into our first reading, which in this case is actually a video. Um, I don't know how many of you might be familiar with Jason Reynolds. Jason Reynolds is an author of novels and poetry for young people. He's quite amazing. Many of his works are great. A particular one that I enjoyed reading was a book called Ghost. I highly recommend it to everyone. It's written for younger kids, but I'm a big kid and I really enjoyed it. So we're going to bring up a video at this time so you can hear directly from Jason Reynolds.
We are pleased to welcome you to the 2019 ALA Annual Conference. Please welcome our opening General Session Speaker, Jason Reynolds.
I hear about it. I'm in the schools. I'm in your neighborhoods. I'm watching librarians have to serve 6 schools. I'm in the schools where there are no libraries. I'm in the prisons where there are no libraries. Something is the matter when people are trying to stop information flow. Perhaps it's because people know that information is a tricky thing. It's a direct parallel, right? Every single religious practice, no matter what that religious practice is, historically has been persecuted. All of them, including the yogis. Every single library system or system for information dissemination has been challenged historically. All of them. Which means the library is sacred. Just like the church is sacred. And if my body is a temple, like my mama say, then that would mean it could be possible that my body could be a library. Here's what I'd like us to think about. Moving forward. Maybe what librarians really are architects. And maybe what your libraries truly are warehouses where we build human libraries. Walking, talking libraries. What does this mean, right? What does this mean? I know somebody like, I don't know what he's talking about. What does this mean? Well, let's talk about what a library is. There's a reference desk. Wouldn't it be incredible if young people walked around with their own reference desk? A reference desk here, a reference desk here, right? Something they could tap into when they needed answers, something they could tap into when they felt lost in a space, something they could tap into when they were searching for something that felt so far away. Libraries are spaces with bookshelves. You see, the thing about me and Aaron sitting on that roof is that what we were actually doing was exchanging narratives. He was putting his books in my stacks. I was putting my books in his stacks. My parents are going through a divorce, Aaron. My parents are going through a divorce too, Jay. How you feel? I feel sad. I'm gonna store that away for you. How you feel? I feel scared. I'm gonna store that away for you. What you wanna do when you get older? I don't know, man, but I hope I live a life that feels like every day is Saturday. I'm gonna keep that book in me. I'm gonna hold that for you. You keep mine in you. We can exchange our information. We can literally go back and forth, loaning each other the books and housing them within ourselves to be pulled up whenever we tap into the reference desk. Imagine what it would be like. Imagine it. I feel so grateful for him. So grateful to walk around with narratives that are not like my own, but still share parts of me. It's an incredible feeling to know that I hold someone's stories that I can then use to be more empathetic. And speaking of empathy, libraries serve as safe spaces. Imagine what it would be like if we trained young people to grow up to actually be safe spaces. Places where people can come to. Just think about it. It's not so esoteric. It's not so abstract, right? Imagine what it would be like if young people were the safe havens for their families and friends, for the people around them, for the homelessness and all the kids who have less than them. Imagine what it would be like if they were the spaces that you work in. Imagine. Because the truth of the matter is just like the library in Alexandria was destroyed, just like people have been persecuted, the truth is, unfortunately, we can't guarantee that all of your buildings are going to stay. So we have an obligation to make sure that if for some reason, God forbid, they don't stay, that young people understand the library ain't that it's this. I appreciate y'all. Thank you very much.
Jason Reynolds is a hard act to follow, but I'm so glad I got to share him with you. The second reading comes from Mark chapter 1, verses 29 to 39. After Jesus and his disciples left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told him about her at once. He came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sundown, they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons. And the whole city was gathered around the door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases, and cast out many demons, and he would not permit the demons to speak because they knew him. And this is an important line. In the morning, while it was still very dark, he got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said, "Everyone is searching for you." He answered, "Let us go on to the neighboring towns, so that I may proclaim the message there also. For that is what I came out to do." And he went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. We've all had this kind of day where you are coming and going and doing. Visiting people in their homes, a little harder to do now. Encountering people facing all kinds of troubles, people tracking you down, telling you things and asking things of you. This passage manages to simultaneously provide two contradictory set of feelings. We sense busyness, anxious times, and too many demands for any one human to handle. But also, we sense a calm assuredness about how to have a steadfast focus on one's purpose. Jesus seems so clear about what he came to do. Yet, I think this passage shows him wavering. Of course, we can't be sure of this. After all, we don't only turn to prayer in times of unsteadiness, but for most of us, this is the most typical feeling that compels us to pray. We are more apt to seek God when our souls are wounded and weary. Let's imagine that I created Zoom breakout rooms and asked you to share with a partner the answer to two questions. First, what is prayer for you? And second, what's the quality of your prayer life? You can all relax. I'm not going to ask you to answer those two questions. But think about for a moment how you would answer them. How do you define prayer? What is the quality of your individual private practice of prayer? The funny thing about these questions is that they hit different if you're a minister. Am I right, Margaret? Kip? Care? You see, if you claim that God has called you to ministry, people expect you to have this prayer thing down. A model prayer life is on the job description. That's why I decided to avoid the breakout rooms so that I can avoid the hard questions myself. The first time I heard a preacher tell the truth about the poor quality of their prayer life, I felt immense relief. I am sure I have quoted this before, but it's so rich that I am not sorry to bring it to you again. Barbara Brown Taylor describes her prayer life. I won't give you her full bio. Some of you are familiar with her work. If you're not, I encourage you to go to YouTube and hear her talk about anything or read anything she's ever written, because you won't be disappointed. In her book, An Altar to the World, she says, I would rather show someone my checkbook stubs than talk about my prayer life. I would rather confess that I am a rotten godmother, that I struggle with my weight, that I fear I am overly fond of Bombay Sapphire gin martinis, than confess that I am a prayer weakling. To say I love God, but do not pray much is like saying I love life, but I do not breathe much. But looking back at the gospel passage, I can't help but wonder, what did Jesus bring to God in that prayer, in the midst of this hectic day when the whole city was gathered around his door? What is prayer like in times and spaces like these, in the early morning, after all the work of the previous day and all that lay ahead? Maybe he was coming worn out from all the healing. Imagine if the COVID-19 vaccine distribution plan was a one-man job. Distribution would be fraught and demand would outstrip supply, even for the Son of God. Maybe he was coming to prayer with a grateful heart. Father, you have gifted me with the power to heal. How amazing is that? Thank you for giving me the skills to proclaim the good news in a way that changes some hearts. I can tell that they're changed by the ways that they show love for one another. Maybe Jesus showed up with uncertainty. Am I fulfilling my purpose in this season? What about the season to come? Can I really go through with the plans you have for me? I'm scared. Maybe I can't do it. Maybe I don't want to. Maybe my purpose is something else. Can't we explore alternatives? Maybe he shared this hard truth. I'm trying to turn everything upside down, but there are so many problems, so many systems to dismantle. How do I know if you're calling me to change them or demanding that I abolish them all? Giver of life, I'm afraid of death. Why have you given me such a heavy burden? This love for others is so very heavy. And on top of it all, you want me to love those who harm me? I repent, Abba. Maybe he came feeling a little big-headed. Father, take away this pride I feel at my daily accomplishments. They think this power comes from me, so they worship me. I know it's only you, but I can't help but like the attention and admiration that comes my way. I am, after all, the Messiah. They stop in their tracks and listen to my every word. It's almost like they're taking notes to write a future bestseller. I must really be somebody. At the very least, I'm the son of somebody. With all this imagining and uncertainty about what happened during this prayer respite that Jesus carved out, there are a few things that we can be confident in our knowing. God accepted Jesus in whatever condition he showed up in. God accepted Jesus if he showed up with praise and gratitude. The triune God accepted the confused Jesus with too many follow-up questions. They comforted the Jesus with the big ego that may have basked in the affections of women who use their hair to wipe their tears, kiss their feet, and pour expensive perfume on them. God surely created hospitality for the tired human Jesus with a to-do list that was too vast for almost anyone. A few things that I can apply from my own firsthand experience. I have never shown up for one-on-one time with God and felt anything other than acceptance. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I show up only to find the strong silent type, when what I really want is feminine divinity that is nurturing and tells it like it is. And that's super frustrating. But then it's just a waiting game. Eventually, God will renew my strength, even if she doesn't always get the credit for it, because I make an imperfect attribution as I tell the story of why I eventually feel brand new, however short-lived it might be. Getting back to our modern day theologian, Barbara Brown Taylor reminds us that prayer does not always look the way Jesus models it in this passage. When we read, "In the morning, while it was still very dark, he got up and went out to a deserted place and he prayed." When we hear this, we get nervous because this is not always or maybe ever how we pray. To that particular anxiety, Reverend Dr. Brown Taylor responds that to survive the shame about her own prayer practices, she explores two possibilities. The first is that prayer is more than her idea of praying. And the second is that for some of us, some of what she actually does in her life may constitute genuine prayer. She asks, "When I fretted over people I knew who were in trouble, so that my worry for them followed me around like a hungry dog, was that prayer? When I cooked dinner for people who had plenty to eat at home, thinking about them while I chopped the turnip greens and mashed the sweet potatoes, was that prayer? When I went outside after everyone had gone to bed and moaned at the moon because I could not come up with the right words to say what was in my heart, was that prayer?" Barbara Brown Taylor shares that her ideas about prayer are heavily influenced by an Australian Benedictine monk, Brother David Stindl Rast, who joined a monastery while Brown Taylor was still in diapers. He wrote a book that I have since got called Gratefulness, the Heart of Prayer, which can be summarized in two words: wake up. She admits that she's attracted to this monk because he doesn't require her to be a monk too. Brother David helps us to remember that prayer is not the same thing as prayers. That is, prayer is more than saying set prayers at set times. Prayer is waking up into the presence of God no matter where you are or what you're doing. Notice that this does not let us off the hook, for it's no small feat to wake up to the presence of God. Brother David says that waking up is a continuous process that takes courage. We have to choose between risk and risk. We run the risk of sleeping through life, of never waking up at all, or else we wakefully rise to the risk of life, facing the challenge of life, of love. He asks, "For if you are in love, then why are you asleep?" What I know for sure about prayer is that the condition we usually show up in is one in which we are asking one simple yet profound question: am I enough to withstand all that we are up against? And God's answer is always the same. Hear it clearly. Close your eyes if it helps. You are enough, just as you are, without changing a thing. I have given you all that you need to do what you came to do. The power of prayer is such that God will do for you what Jesus did for Simon's mother-in-law. The word says that he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her and she began to serve them. God will take you by the hand, will lift you up. Your troubles will subside enough that you will be able to find someone else whose hand you can take hold of and whom you can lift up. It is part of what you came to do. So no matter how you pray, whether you get up in the morning while it's still dark and pray in a deserted place so that you can retire from worldly associations, or if your prayer is the worry for someone else's troubles that follows you around all day like a hungry dog, or if your prayer comes in the form of chopping turnip greens and mashing sweet potatoes as you cook for someone, or if your prayer is what Jason Reynolds described in the video, when you store away someone's sadness and fear from the impact of a divorce, or hold someone's hope that they might live a life that feels every day like a Saturday. May all these forms of prayer wake you up to the presence of God so that you might hear God say, "You are enough, just as you are, without changing a thing. I have given you all that you need to do what you came to do." This is the good news of God. Amen.